So if I may, we're going to jump right in and introduce Mr. Goodyear. And he's going to enlighten us about his life.
Oh, no. No, there'll be parts left out. Guarantee you on that. Okay, folks, I don't have a plot tonight. I been working on this for several weeks. My notes. I do feel honored to be here to talk about such a thing, because this town, our community means an awful lot to me, as it does, I hope, to all of you. Those to talk about the history of the farm, so I'll give you stuff. I was going to put it all in order, exactly what happened when and what dates, but that fell by the wayside.
Stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff happens. Oops, excuse me. Well, we'll start off by telling you that our house, part of our house, is the oldest structure in Brunswick. My sister checked on this, one of my sisters checked on this years ago and gave us a rough area. But then a couple of years ago, I was on a trip down to a funeral home, and I had a real sweet young lady driving me. I think that was because of I had a new knee put in, if I remember right, where she was driving and paying for the fuel, and I didn't have to, with one or two things. And she happened to be a newspaper reporter, and she mentioned that she had checked on my house and found out that it goes back to the 1830s. Now, you look at my house today, our house, why it really isn't just an old log cabin, because it has 19 rooms in it. You know, it's a big duplex, old farmhouse right now. But the original part of that house is what today is my kitchen, my utility room, and part of my dining room. That's what they started with. Then some other time in the 1800s, they added on across the front of the house. In 1928, was added on the portion of the house that sticks out to the east. And then my dad, he added on a kitchen for Mom, put on a nice big kitchen. That was put on about 65. And in 66, I started buying in with my parents, and I put the garage on. Of course, we remodeled much of the other. I remember I had a friend come in off the fire department and use the chainsaw in the dining room and living room to widen the door out so we could. You have to do what you have to do when you live in an old house. And anyway, that's the house. There have been quite a few children raised in the place in my time. I've got right now my older son, his wife, and the two little ones. They'll be 8 and 10 next month. They, of course, live here. This barn right here, why, the first two rows of you folks, we're in the hay loft, or in the hay mound area. Well, all the way up to the roof. In fact, about where you're sitting, Cindy, want to raise your hand so they know Right about there was the ladder that went up to the roof. Right? So you could climb in the hay and come down the ladder when you were stacking bales or whatever. There was a trolley car that ran all the way along upstairs. There was a solid wall back there behind where Jim's sitting. That was a solid wall across there. The door was over by the front of the building here. Just a man door. On the other end, that's where the cattle were and the sheep. Whatever else there was here in the old days. For the horses were kept in the coach house. Not in my day. Well, I did have one horse at one time. We lived in the coach house, but not in the living room. That was not at that time. But this is an old cattle barn. You want to get to the silo, when you're all through here tonight and on your way out, you can look at the second window from the south on the front of the building. That went to the silo. I never saw the silo, but I remember seeing the base of it in the ground. The milk house, I remember, never used it. I always say I've got to thank God that my father was into beef cattle instead of milk cattle. It might have shut me off farming altogether. At the far window all the way down, that was the door that went out to the milk house. The flooring up the other end, there were the troughs for the manure trough, there were the stanchions, there were the pens. My dad got rid of the cattle, we got into sheep. But we had sheep and cattle at the same time, excuse me, we got into more sheep. When you came along about 1960, and I'm jumping my notes, but you don't know what I have, so you can't jump. Pardon?
Dirt floor?
Oh, this was a wooden floor over dirt. The other end was concrete. And between Cindy and Jim, that was the barn floor. The big sliding doors on the front and back, drive through. In 1960, because of the political problems within our community, some of you may know of, some may not. We were involved in the Brunswick Youth Club in the old town hall. And Mom or Dad, I don't know which one, came up with the idea of moving the cattle, the sheep, and the tractor out of here and bringing the kids in. Or I better say children, seeing it's a farm. That other end all had to be dug out to put in the concrete floor that we have today. A lot of teenage boys were down there helping. That included the Bilski boys. It broke up all the concrete, hauled it all outside. So Dad was able to put in the concrete floor that we have today. This barn, as you see it today, has so many memories in it of weddings, parties, reunions. In fact, today, the class of '63 called me about having their reunion here. They called to get the price. Pardon? I didn't hear. I haven't heard yet. All I know is, honey, that they called to get the price. the young lady was surprised and, well, it was Jeanette Ruff that called. And I think she was surprised that I was still around. You'll have to excuse me if I get too dry here, folks, because for some reason my body's not been acting right. So,
Just to interject,
There's water.
what?
Drink it.
Take a drink.
just to interject a moment,
Oh, go ahead, Carl.
I kind of remember swinging a sledgehammer in here, breaking out the concrete, with someone saying, yeah, we'll get some pizza later. I still wonder if later is coming.
You give me a few weeks, Carl, we'll see.
We didn't have so many pizza brothers then, just one.
Yeah, please. Please. Okay, anyway. We've had so many things in this hall. Right now on the books, I know we've got wedding showers, baby showers, weddings. A family last year on Thanksgiving Day reserved it for their family gathering for this coming year, Thanksgiving Day. We're lucky. We're lucky. We've had tool auctions in here. The one year, the tool auction came in and they put two big semis in the back. And that's where they bring the stuff in here and auction it up, and well, you went out back and pick up your stuff. It was, those people know how to do those things. Had a toy auction in here for several years. You may remember Earl, Dennis Everhart. Okay, Denny was the one, the auctioneer that ran those toy sales. Not probably, the thing closest to me was BYC. In 1957, the canteen up in the old, well, all of you should remember Visitator building that they just tore down. Well, in that building, down around in the back, downstairs, there was a meeting room. And the PTA had a canteen going there. And the lady that ran it for the canteen, her name was Jane Burlow. And Janie was quite a lady. She was great. She had two children, Mary and Frank. And anyway, I was still hanging around, hanging around the canteen because my brother was younger and a lot of the kids I hung with were younger than I, and I was out of school already for a year. And three kids came up to me one night because the canteen, the word was they were going to close it down for the summer. There weren't enough kids, they figured. So Barbara Berenson, Earl Everhart, and David Reese, maybe some of you remember the names, they approached me and they had a petition. I couldn't tell you how many names were on it, but an awful lot of names. And they asked me if I would help them keep the canteen going. Well, it was run by the PTA and I wasn't involved in the PTA. So I figured the best place to go would be to Jane Burlow. So I asked Jane about it. Well, within another few days, those three children and myself, we met at Janie's house over in Hinkley. She lived at the golf course over there at the end of Grafton Road. And we set up Brunswick Youth Club, BYC. Now then, we had to meet somewhere. So the minister of the Methodist church at the center of town was called, and he said, well, sure, you can use the basement of the church. So we let the word out. Brunswick Youth Club, BYC, was going to meet in the basement of the church, and everybody was invited. Well, in those days, the basement of the Methodist church was strictly what was under the old sanctuary. And it was a little crowded that first night. Because I'm not sure that, I don't know, maybe every kid in Brunswick was there that night. But one of us made the trip over to the town hall to a trustees meeting. And the 3 township trustees were asked, could we use the upstairs of the town hall for BYC? The trustees immediately said, no, we won't rent out or loan out the upstairs of the town hall to a bunch of children. Look, we weren't children. There was Mary Burlow, or not Mary, excuse me, Janie. And then we'd have some parents there. We'd already had several that were up there at the church. And the trustees said, wait a minute. If you will take the responsibility, and they pointed to the guy, if you'll take the responsibility, you can do it. Well, that worked out great, because in a few more days, the upstairs in the town hall was the place to go every Saturday night. Then we had more people getting involved, and my mom and dad got in on it right away. Some of the other parents were with us quite a bit. And in 1958, BYC was incorporated.
Wow.
And we really went after the kids' money. You bought a membership card for $1. That was for the whole year. But you had to pay with it. Now, come on, you had to pay. And we came up with some pretty strict rules. You were allowed in, if you were a member, but you could only bring 1 guest. You paid a dime, your guest had to pay a quarter. Well, there was never a problem with that. The membership cards were sold like crazy. In fact, over the time, excuse me, folks, over the time, let's see, I've got to be able to tell this story and get it straight out, because if I say one thing wrong ahead of place, it's going to mess it up for you. My mother sat at the desk, and she took in the names of everybody that signed in. You signed in. And she'd write the name down or your number. Every membership card had a number. And it got so my mom, she was able to remember numbers. Of course, at the same time, she's checking the girls to make sure their skirts were a proper length. The boys were not allowed to wear anything but dress pants. We were strict. Up on the dance floor, we made sure that we didn't dance improperly either. Back to the story. the church, our church, had a night at a hockey game. And they had raising money for something in the church, one of the organizations. And Mom and Dad, myself, we were at the hockey game. And behind my mom was Mrs. Bowman, Howard Bowman's wife, Edna Bowman, down on 303. Ran a big dairy farm. And one of the kids that came regularly happened to be coming in. Now, our membership for the youth club was 500 feet outside of Brunswick. And remember, at that time it was all still Brunswick. We're 500 feet outside of our school district. This way it was only fair, excuse me, the kids that lived on the west side of Marks Road could be buddy-buddy with a kid on Brunswick side. So why should they have to pay to come and have a good time just because they lived across the street? So that was a rule. And there were no exceptions. No exceptions. Mom saw this kid coming down, and she turned to Edna, Mrs. Bowman, and said, "Oh, look, there's so-and-so coming in. That fella, he's one of the nicest guys. He's all the time, and his name is Wesley." And Wesley, Mrs. Bowman looked and said, "That's not Wesley." Mom said, "Well, sure it is. He's a member of the youth club. I see him every week." Mom probably could have told Edna what his number was. And the two women sat there confused, only for a second, because Mrs. Bowman knew this kid, knew his mother, knew his father. My mom didn't. Come to find out, this kid lived in Hinckley, outside the district. He and his friends came to BYC all the time. He knew that Wesley didn't come to BYC. He signed in as Wesley. Yeah, it's all for a good laugh. It was funny. It was funny.
What they do to him.
Made him buy his own card.
Lived down
Yeah.
at Did he live down at Bennett's Corners?
I'm sorry, guys, I gotta take another drink.
Did he live at Bennett's Corners?
Pardon?
Did he live down at Bennett's Corners?
No.
Further into Hinckley. You'd have to live further into Hinckley.
Across from the,
Oh, that other side of the road, Hinckley.
where Goodyear.
He lived across the street from
Bowman's?
Eddie Pfister.
Okay.
You can guess, Gary, you mean that you can guess well. He played a good one on us.
That was rich.
Yeah.
Not to change the subject, but didn't your dad have a machine shop here at one time?
Yes. Yeah. I'll get to that in a minute, please, okay? Now, I tell my kids, and I'll tell anybody that listens to me, because I look in this crowd and they're all my personal friends, and all of you know me. So if I say something about myself, like, just ignore it and listen to what I'm telling you. I still hear BYC closed down in '66 because another spot in town opened up where there were no rules of any kind, and with the teenagers being dumber than sheep. I say it like that because I don't want to insult my sheep. Instead of going to the other place, because the word was the other place was all out of towners that we didn't allow in. But everybody goes there, I'm staying home tonight. That was that's what happened. We went from some nights 300 kids in here, because when we moved down here, we opened up on Friday nights also. Anyway, and on Friday nights, the girls were allowed to wear slacks if they went to a football game. Basketball, no, you could still look like a lady climbing up in the bleachers. But football games, we gave them a break. Anyway, geez, oh man, I'm getting old, I guess.
Look at your notes. Look at your notes.
The what?
The new club took over.
Oh, yeah. And we closed down. That's the reason we closed down. Now then, I don't think the Bradley, my little grandson that came in here a few minutes ago, a little 8-year-old, I don't think he believes me yet. But when I'm out here alone at night, I can still hear music bouncing off the walls. And it's not the nonsense that we playing today on the radio. It's the same nice stuff. You hold a girl and you dance. You put the polka on. Well, I remember the little girls that line up to get a polka. Now, that was neat. They were all like little sisters. So, but son of a gun, I can still hear the music in here, really. I really can. Now then, down in the coach house. In the coach house, that used to be a T-shaped building, 40 feet across the front and a 20 by 20 off the back. The back is where the horses were kept. The outhouse was in the corner where our driveway is now, where you will be going out tonight. And it was set back in this spot, because the 20 by 20 section set right in the middle of the front portion that was 40 feet across, 20 foot deep. That was the carriage house. One big door on the front of that place where you put the carriages inside. In the early 50s, I think it was 53, my dad got tired of driving to Cleveland, so he brought his machine shop here to home to the farm. He had Goodyear tool and die. He had been in business since 1940, and he owned the building down on Associate Avenue in the city of Brooklyn. And he concreted the floor. The outhouse we didn't use, so that went the way old outhouses go, I guess. It disappeared. And the floor was filled in and got a concrete floor in a section that squares off this corner of the barn down there, the coach house, because today it's 40 by 40 all the way around. Now then, Dad brought his machine shop out. Then his older son didn't cut it as a die maker. No, didn't. Tried it, but it didn't work. Years later, the younger son bought the shop and was going to be taught how to do things. Well, in 64, 63 it started, I had come home and I'd found a girl, and Mom and Dad decided they'd empty out the upstairs of the coach house and build it into an apartment. So in 66, I moved upstairs in the coach house with my bride. That didn't work. We didn't get along. That's a whole different story.
Happens to the best of us.
Pardon?
Happens to the best of us.
She was a great lady. We ended on good terms, but man. Yeah, that's another story. Okay, back to
Back to the farm.
Back to the machine shop.
That's a story someday I want to put in writing. Because there's a lot more to it than just, let's get married, let's get divorced. There were other things after that okay. I gotta remember this is on our tape forever. Well, as probably all of you know, I was on the fire department, and I picked up a young lady in 62, married her in 64. We divorced in 66. In 76, I picked her up again. But this time we lost her. That's a whole, like I say, a whole different story.
The first time you picked her up, it was an accident.
Oh, automobile accident, yeah. Yeah. A snowstorm. Jeez. When I went over to sign up Hinckley, I had to go to Highland School, sign up Hinckley to train the fire department. And I happened to be in the office of the superintendent when the class rang. And as I was standing there watching these kids going by, geez, oh man, I got hit in the head hard. Let's get back to this. Anyway, there's an apartment upstairs in the coach house. But now in 78, my brother made a deal with Dad. Bill was going to buy the machinery, move it out to his barn, which is over here next door. Because Bill still lives here on the farm, my brother. He and his wife live in a new house over here in the old orchard. Well, they moved the stuff out, and Dad had to design to build an apartment downstairs. And Bill was going to move in there because he and his wife had split. Well, then Dad went to the hospital and he was killed. He was overdosed by drugs in a hospital and he died. And that was That was my dad. So Bill went ahead and fixed up the coach house apartment downstairs. And by the time he got it through, a year or so later, he had found another lady, and she moved in, and they ended up a year later building a house over here, and they got married over there in their yard. So that coach house has a lot of memories. The other side of the coach house where it's added on with just a shed roof to make it a square, that did hold a horse at one time. That Dr. Orlowski, remember that name, some of us do? Okay, he was on the second house over. And he bought a horse for Peggy and Maria. And that horse's name was Doc. And Dr. Orlowski had no place to keep the horse. So we kept Doc over here for a long time down in the back section of the barn. So in that barn also there was a trolley up overhead to haul the hay. And when we cleaned it out for the first apartment, why we stored hay up there, we stored grain up there, and of course we stored everything else up there. Any of you folks that related to any farming, you know how extra stuff goes in the barn. So now then, the old chicken house, that we went out of chickens. And at one time, and I can't tell you exactly, it was sometime after the split of Brunswick and Brunswick Hills, the fire department kept one of the engines down here and one of the squads. One was parked in the chicken house, one was parked back over there. By that time there was a door on the end here of the barn that you could back the vehicle in. So I wouldn't call them fire stations, but it just adds a little more to it in my personal history that I had fire trucks running off the farm. Big deal. And, excuse me, I'll take a look at my notes. Let's see. I don't even know where I'm at. There's been so much going on around here. With the farm, right today, although our farm is only 45 acres, we put up 75 acres of hay we put up this year. That's per cutting. As I would hope all of you know, we've got a petting farm. And the farm started out, the traveling farm started out in 1960. I had a real close friend, one of the nicest girls that you'd ever want to meet. She wasn't my girlfriend, although I tried. She was just a good friend, you know? And just a great lady. And she became a school teacher. And she was going to BW. And I got a phone call one night. Dave, I'm student teaching at a school in Brook Park. Could you bring me over a lamb, a bunny, whatever? Well, taking that bunny and lamb over to her kids that day, has gotten me a camel and reindeer and horses and rabbits and sheep. And the traveling farm was great. I figured that was in 60, right close to it anyway. And my older sister was a school teacher, and she said, Dave, you've got to put this road show, some action here at home. So she mimeographed up some papers and sent them to various places and schools. And that started the day at Spring Mist Farms. But not by that name though, it was still just Goodyear's farm. And today, I get field trips, I get birthday parties with the day at Spring Mist Farms. You come in here, your child or the children, they get to ride a pony cart, they get a hay wagon ride on an empty hay wagon that they're behind the tractor. It's empty because I don't feel the teachers should have to worry about kids with the allergies. Then we take them in the horse barn and they pet. We stake out for them a horse, a mule, a pony, a donkey, a sheep, a goat, a lamb, a kid, and a cow. Then we move out to the bird area. And there they pet a turkey, a duck, a goose, a chicken, and a rabbit. Then we take them over and let them see the pigs. Now I've got several modern animals today because it's agriculture. That's what I'm here for, to show the kids the real stuff. So on a day at the farm, if you see the animals, you see them. If you don't, that's the way it goes. But you'll probably see a llama, an alpaca, the reindeer, the peafowl you're going to see because they can't get away from you. They're penned in. And maybe the elk. If the elk are over the hill, you don't see them. That's your problem. Come when we're open to the public. That's the way it goes. We open up the restrooms in this barn for them to use, of course. And then they have their picnic lunch, if that's what they want, out here on the grass. And that's a day at the farm that we have today. Now, the name of the farm. When I married Lee in 72, which we just got in 50 years before she left. Anyway, we wanted a different name. We wanted a name, not that we were ashamed of Goodyear's, but it would just make it a little different. So we took the name of my horse, Spring Beauty, and the name of her horse that we had bought for her, excuse me, right away. That horse's name was Misty. Big gold palomino. Boy, she was just beautiful. Anyway, we took Spring Mist. And that's how we got the name of the farm. So it's Goodyear Spring Mist Farms. And that's the way it'll stay. Because when I'm gone, Howard's going to keep it going, he and Abby. Bradley and Eliza will tell you that when their mom and dad are gone, they'll be running the show. They'll be running the show. I shouldn't say, oh, I'm sorry, it's not proper.
Excuse me, Mr. Goodyear.
Yes, sir.
Just asking for a friend. Is there a jackass on the farm?
Oh, be careful.
If you want the truth, right now, I think you might be able to call 4 of them. There's Pete, he's the older guy. there's Kenny, and there's Zed. They're the two half brothers. And we'll leave it go with that. Thank you. I try to have everything. We do have everything. Boy, I'm glad you guys are all friends. I think he is friends. I don't know how it is the other way. But geez, oh man.
So Dave, what year did you guys move in here? Your parents?
Early 50s,
Early 50s.
before there were any developments in town. But we were so lucky, Gary.
You were about, you were a teenager by then?
Just, yeah.
He was age.
We're so lucky to be accepted into this town.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad were so active in the church,
Oh,
then, you know, the rest of us were.
So what year did you graduate then?
56.
56, is there any other year?
56.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's other years.
Geez, Gary,
52.
56.
56,
They're
yeah.
65.
Bill was, what, 2 years behind you?
Pardon?
Bill was 2 years?
My brother?
Yeah.
3,
3.
59.
59.
Yeah.
Year before.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
61.
We got a lot of the years represented here.
Yeah, and there have been a couple of times the classes have had reunions here.
So how many were in your class?
It was to be the largest class.
Was there even 50?
There were 52 of us, and it was the largest class for years to come. It was the largest one, and then they dropped back down again. My foot. But you have 600 graduating or something like that a year around here now. Jeez, oh man.
Class of 61 was 100.
61. I'll tell you, you go back to the days of BYC, which is only part of the whole story. It was something. And a couple of classes, the one year, the class reunion was here, and I can't remember honestly which class it was, but it was one of those that graduated during the years of BYC. And,
So it really meant a lot to them.
pardon?
It really meant a lot to them to have me here.
Oh, they said to my mom, you gotta come out. Mom said, I don't want to go out. Said, no, kids want us, we'll go out, we'll be back in the house in 10, 15 minutes. Yeah.
Danced all that night, huh?
We didn't get back in for over an hour. I remember one guy, he was not a troublemaker, he was just well known. His name was Frank, his first name. I don't remember what year it was. He was, heck, I worked with his mother when she worked at Kroger's up at Laurel Square. And he couldn't believe. Ma looked at him and she called him by name. It was, we couldn't get out of here. It's just something. Then one year, they called, and by they, I mean whoever the organizers were, because I don't remember all that stuff, you know. They called and talked to my bride. They said, Lee, we want you to set the night aside. We want Dave to come out, and I shouldn't be bragging today. I'll tell you anyway, you all know me. We want Dave to come out. We don't want you to plan anything else for that night. What Saturday night can we have our reunion? And I came out once again that night, like they asked. And geez, I was out there, I don't know how long. But they parked across the street in the vet spot. They parked at Bob's next door. the body shop. They parked across the street. I think at that time it was Parma Auto Parts, they called it, over there next to the old majorette. Our parking lot was filled, and doggone it, they got the city to give them a bus and a driver to move the people.
Yeah.
They came in, they ate at the school, they had our presents, the present superintendent of schools, if I remember right, it might have been when you were a principal, Jimmy, I don't remember. But the classes, the class, they ate up at the school,
It was
at
five,
the old
it
school.
was 5 years.
Yeah.
I think it was 61 or 60 to 65. Everybody was,
Geez, oh man, they brought the bus down.
yep,
Nancy Visitator came down in the bus.
parked at the school.
We parked at the school. And just great stories. Great stories. Pardon?
Good time.
Yeah. Yeah. I was too. I wasn't planning on being honored. But you know, if I turn off that furnace, and if we're all quiet, you might be able to hear that music. I don't know. Does that mean I'm finished?
Good job.
If you want to,
Take
you
a
have the
14.
end of the notes.
Oh, I could keep going here.
Oh, no.
Keep going? Okay. Let me read it just down the line here a little bit. BYC, once again, they moved down here and they built a beautiful float inside here. We got it outside. And we took it down the driveway behind whatever was going to float in a parade. If I remember right, it was, no, that was 65. I don't think it was then. Before then. We got it down the front. Couldn't get it out the driveway because the dull darn tree was in the way. These kids that worked on this thing, they built this, and the float they built, if I remember right that year, they had a big octopus, stood about this high, and he had his 8 tentacles sticking out, wrapped around the treasure chest. We used these decorations at a special party we had when we had it up at the Visitator building in the new gym. And we were using on this float where tomorrow's leaders enjoy themselves today was written on the side. And it was, I don't know if that was the float, but it was a big tall one another year, BYC on it. Anyway, they made it out of chicken wire, and then they stuffed them with colored napkins. Couldn't get out the driveway, so Dad said, there's no problem. He got out a chainsaw and cut the tree down. Everybody was happy. We went out in a parade. That might have been the year we won the trophy too, I don't remember. But the old pump house sat down with my garage sits right today. The garage as you're going out. And there was a switch there. And I remember as a kid, you could go out and you could flip a valve, just flip it one way or the other, and then turn on the electricity for the pump. And look back here at the building here. And there was a water tank upstairs on that corner of this building, up in the hayloft. And when you saw the water coming out of that pipe at the top of the tank, you knew the water tank was filled for the animals back here. Turn off the electric pump. Sure be carrying water from the house back here. Oh, geez, yes. But Dad cutting down the tree. That's my dad was like. He said, we'll build the apartment upstairs in a coach house. We'll build the apartment downstairs in a coach house. You want a better kitchen? You build Mom a better kitchen. That was the way my dad was. In fact, Mom and Dad did a lot. In the fire service, when we first started, the first rescue squad in Medina County was Brunswick Fire Department back in '58. And the fire squad was not kept in the fire station. Fire station wasn't big enough. The station's behind the old town hall in a one-bay, 2 vehicles deep. Well, you might see 2 vehicles. The tanker, excuse me, the tanker was backed up against the wall to the east, the back of the station. The engine was pulled in until it touched the tanker. You wanted to walk around the other side, you climbed up on the back step of the pumper, walked across and jumped back off. And there was maybe a couple feet between the front of the engine and the overhead door. The rescue squad was kept up here at a fellow's place called Bud Fish. Dwayne Fish. He and his wife and their 3 children lived up here where you have today a little wooded area between St. Ambrose and Rolling Hills Shopping Center. And the squad was kept there because Bud is the one who bought it, offered it to the town. The town, the one trustee said, no, we're not going to run a squad. The other 2 said, well, we're for it, but we want to make it unanimous. Give us a couple of weeks. Bud went back a couple of weeks later, but he stopped at the fire station first. He was one of the firemen. And he offered this rescue squad vehicle to the Firemen's Association. Firemen's Association said yes, 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 yes. So Bud Fish, the chief was Carl Zimmerman, and Denny, oh, come on.
Kerwin?
No, Denny wasn't on the department then. He was never on Brunswick, he was on Brunswick Youth Club. Denny, Chuck Dennison, he was one of my idols, and I'm sorry. But Chuck was the president of the association. They went into the trustees, and Bud said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to offer it to you again. We're going to run it. And the one trustee said, no, you're not. Well, that didn't mean anything. There was one guy, there were 35 guys in the fire department. The town backed us by having a door-to-door campaign. It was great. And they were going into another era. But anyway, my mom answered the phone for the rescue squad after we put another phone line in. But to begin with, the phone calls went to Bud's place. And Mrs. Fish would get the call, and she'd call out to Bud in the garage, and she'd call my mother. And Mom would make the calls to make sure there were 6 men on every run. And that squad went, and it was great. I made a lot of runs. I was lucky.
hearse?
No, it was an old ambulance, but it wasn't one with an extended roof, no extended sides, no extended back. It was strictly an ambulance. It had the cot. It was two-tone green, and the siren on the top was something else. It was a big dual tone. And I really think it probably was as loud as the one in the town hall that you could hear all over town the weather was right. And one red light on the front, and it went this way. That was it. And that was something. We would load up in that thing. The state just started the rescue training, which today they call EMT. And they just started that training, and the chief instructor was giving a class in Akron at the Fire Training Academy. So we jumped in the squad, and we went over there. And we got our class training in night after night after night, whatever. And I can't remember exactly right now how many hours it was in that. But that was something. We'd get 3 guys in the cab, and the rest would be in the back, sitting on this cot. And it didn't have a nice bench on the side like today you got. And I happened to be checking one out last week. They've had a bench on both sides. The firemen come out, and they push a button, and the skeleton stretcher comes out the back of the apparatus like this. They push a button, and the legs go down. Jeez, oh man.
Called progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's what they call it, Rich. Do I necessarily believe it? No. But remember, I'm an old guy.
It works.
How's your back, Dave?
Pardon?
How's your back?
Mine? We want to talk about that. But yeah, it's, you had to have the manpower to carry people. But, you get on some of these places and they roll the guy with the back injury. They roll him on his cot because there's only 2 or 3 guys, and it's going across this way and across the gravel. Oh, that feels great on a guy's back. He's in bad shape. The old days you carried him.
Yeah.
No, it's,
And you got a bad back because of it.
yes, yeah,
No, really.
yeah. So, but anyway, Mom did all the laundry. It's not like today. Today they go into the hospital and they throw the sheets in a pile and they take out clean ones. It all had to be, the hospital wouldn't have even thought of that in those days. The fire departments were looked at in those days perhaps as taking the ambulance outfit, the undertaker's business from them or whatever. I don't know. It just, it's a total different than it was. Not all good for the good though, not all for the good. But that's not for discussion tonight. I want to make sure that I cover my parents a lot in this stuff because they did so much for our town. Mom and Dad were there every night at BYC, Fridays and Saturdays, in the old town hall and down here. Dad's job basically was to patrol the parking lot. You weren't allowed to sit in your cars down here. And if you found anything that shouldn't be in the car, we'd give you a break. But you dump it right here. And it was dumped right there. Now, there were times, I will admit, that we had to get tough. The kid was sent a letter. You disobeyed this rule, you're thrown out. They didn't put it that way. Mom put it nice. She was nice, not like me. You were put out for a week or 2 weeks, depending on how bad you were. The parents got a copy of that letter. And when the time was up, the kid would be back. The kid would be back. And Mom and Dad, on the executive board, they worked. They were active in church, active in town.
How about the babies?
Oh, geez. Mom took in little babies. Thank you, Sam. I've got it written down somewhere there. Mom took care of babies for the county. She was licensed for 6. These are brand new babies coming out of the hospital. The head of the welfare department, I don't remember exactly what her name was right now, but they'd bring the baby up and give it to Mom, and Mom took care of the baby. And we'd give them a name, or the welfare department or whoever it was came in. One little fella, his name was Bobby. And because his mother had not had proper care, Bobby's eyes weren't working right. I remember my mom leaning over the dining room table, turned out all the lights, pulled the drapes with a flashlight. She'd shine it on the ceiling, and I have to watch his eyes. When he left, now I will give you this, Mom had him a little longer than normal, but when he left, his eyes were working fine. They're working fine. The one bedroom in the house, in fact, it's what my dining room is today. With the narrower door, so it was before I widened out the door with the chainsaw. Why, Dad had 6 cribs set in that room, and all the stuff. Now, Mom never had more than 4, I think it was, maybe 5, but she never was to the limit. But she was licensed for all of them. And she did a good job. I guarantee you that. Her assistant wasn't very well, but you gotta like kids in the first place, and I never did. So. But probably the greatest honor that I have, not the fact that some of you in this room came to BYC and your parents trusted me with guiding you right on that Saturday or Friday night. And that would be honor enough. But something more is the honor that the federal government gave to us, what was it, 7 years ago, from the Rocky River Watershed Group. Ed Kelly was and Ed's one of our people in the Historical Society. He came up with the idea for some reason, and he went to the township trustees. They said yes. He went to the Brunswick City Council. And then he went to the county commissioners and they said yes. And in 2016, I was going to remember the exact name of the outfit, but you'll excuse me for not remembering that. I hope. They named a creek for my mom and dad. This creek starts over here on our place. When I was a kid, there was a spring there. Now that spring may have come back now. I don't know, there's water out there, but I haven't been back to check it. But when you look at this map, if you wish to afterwards, you've got a piece going up to the north. That's coming down through Petchler's Woods. Okay, when they paved Grafton Road. The first 3/4 of a mile of Grafton Road comes through the creek bed. And a large portion of it comes up to Petchler's place, used to be where Joyce grew up, over here on Grafton Road. And that comes down through the woods, and the pipe ends close to our place. Can't tell you honestly how close, but it comes on down to a Y back in here at this spot. And then you can follow this creek on down, and it's the back leg coming into Brunswick Lake. And all the way down, and it's now called Goodyear Creek. And that was named for my mom and dad. Now, I think that's about it. I could go on for hours here. Told you about the tree that cut down. Oh, 1 year, old-fashioned days, had a rain out. So the farm was offered to them to come in to see if they could recoup some. And they did. They came down here, they sold refreshments in this building here. They had pony rides, and I don't remember whether no, it wasn't that time. But they made a lot of money that year to help them out. In the early 90s, middle 90s. Howard was in the band. Lee and I were not active in the Boosters Club, but they wanted to do something. The Boosters wanted to have a garage sale. So what they did, they moved in here on a Monday. On Wednesday, they opened up for the garage sale. They had this place loaded. There weren't any chairs out here. These were all tables. Loaded with stuff. They'd been saving up. They went to garage sales and bought everything that was left and put it in somebody's barn. And they brought it up here. They had a school bus at that time they used for hauling their instruments. And they'd fill that bus up from that barn and bring it up here and unload it and fill it up again. So anyway, they had this garage sale. We had the farrier come in, the blacksmith, and we had the sheep shearer come in, and we set up demonstrations. And the Boosters did this for a couple of years. They made out pretty good on that. So it's all our town, gang. It's our hometown. So I think I better shut up now. I still could keep going on, but I'm not. I've kept you here. I don't even know my clock isn't working right again.
Couple hours late.
Put a new battery in it today, and the spinner started spinning around. It went around for, well, I don't know what time it was. It started at 6 or something, was spun around and stopped right at 12 o'clock. Well, I came out here tonight, and it's still 2 hours behind. Anyway, I told you so much. The church, our church, has had doings down here. In fact, I had the haunted vineyard we had here at the farm. And this, today it's now called Pumpkins and Ponies because the vineyard just got too muddy with the people all the time. The church came in, they wanted to do something for the kids. So we went out back and set up a trail, and we hauled the kids around on a hay wagon. And we had different things set up of stuff. And there was a witch's kettle. We had a big tub and a witch standing around it. That type of stuff.
How did the witch go?
The fourth one was Carl. The fourth one was Carl.
I thought it
Anyway,
was Dave.
pardon?
I thought it was Dave.
I'll remember that. Anyway, a couple of years later, I thought, wait a minute, maybe these animals we can make some money this way. Because no matter how bad things get, all time, even during COVID, no money coming in, but the darn animals wouldn't stop eating.
Yep.
I don't think it was funny. I talked to them. They still. Anyway, we set up. I was able to made contact with a man who brought in diagrams of what I wanted. And they were, what's the best way to hear? He made a cow, cut out a piece of plywood, a cow. And the cow had a mask on the side. And the mask would drop down. And you could see it was a cow. And you as adults, you know it was a cow. You knew it was a horse. But the little kids didn't, because they saw a clown. No comment, Carl. They saw a clown. And then, as the kids got in front, the mask would drop down or go up, whichever way. And they'd see it was really a cow. It had different shoes on its feet, different socks on its feet, but you knew what it was. We had many of these things. We ended up, the first year, it was Howard and Connie's friends that laid on the grass out in the vineyard, and they pulled the strings back and forth. When a family came up, they'd pull it slowly. We had lights on all these things. One year, it went from Howie's friends and Connie's friends, it went to hiring a scout troop from our church. They could come in here, they camped out for a weekend. And then at night, both nights, they'd be pulling the strings. Well, then a new scoutmaster took over, and he didn't really care for the idea. And he let the kids get too loud and want to scare these little kids walk out. It's pretty dark out there. I mean, you see that you're walking towards that light, but when you're back here, it's pretty dark. And you went out and around the vineyard and back in again. After the scout troop, I saw the new leader wasn't that interested in remembering these are little kids. So I put motors on all these things. 18 different items we had. there was the farmer holding a chicken on his hand. No, I said it wrong. The farmer, I don't know. But he was on a pedestal that went around, and when you got to that side, it was a scarecrow.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff. We still have one today we're still using. It's a turkey sitting on a tree stump. And that thing turns around and it goes, they're geared down to go slow. And when it comes around, you see the turkey's in a pumpkin costume. And it moves on around. We had 3 pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns, 3 jack-o'-lanterns, and you had a kitten. And the kitten went in this one and came back up and went down this one. All kinds of cute little things. And like I say, just time beat them up. They're out in the weather for a month. So you can imagine how that took its toll. So I still have, I believe there's still 5 of these 18 that we do have out, and we do use them. One of them that we still use are the 3 cans of feed, and all of a sudden the lids come off the feed and there's the goat behind it or on top of it or whatever, I don't remember. But it's pumpkins and ponies. Our ponies are dressed in costume, and the one horse that we're walking, given a rides on are in costumes. So you know, I don't want to give up on having reindeer.
You're on TV too, I've seen you on TV, on the morning show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so proud that I know you. Oh, really? You come to
We've been on-
well.
In fact, that one newscaster several years ago, sharp looking, married one of our school teachers,
Robin Swabon.
Robin.
Oh, yeah.
She did a live shot from here one year on our candy cane Christmas that we don't have anymore. But they did a live cast here, and she went out to the barn for Charlie, and the Charlies are camels, if you don't know that. And then she came in here and she had a speaker here, a speaker from a chocolate candy outfit down in Strongsville, talking about candies. She had the lady from, forgot the name, right on the corner of 18 and 42 as you're going into town. Cool Beans, is it?
Oh, yeah, Cool Beans.
Okay, the lady that owns that, she was here talking about Christmas drinks. They had a nurse here from Metro General to talk on your general health at Christmas about don't eat, don't drink, and you know, don't do anything at Christmas time. But we've been very lucky. We've been very lucky.
You're lucky, you worked hard.
We have
Yeah.
we've taken how he's taken the reindeer down at Christmas time, or when they've stuffed the bus on one of
Oh,
those
yeah.
down there.
Yes.
Oh, we've been lucky.
That-
We've been lucky. So I think
You're just very creative and work hard.
well, we tried.
You do.
We tried. I mean, you know, I'll be 52 next week.
Tough crowd.
What about the other way?
Anyway, I just about shot it tonight here, gang. I've got, our horses. We are not in riding horses. This is a farm. We have work horses, draft horses. And our only shows that we go to, other than our own show when a bride calls us, we go up on our wedding carriage service and whatever. we do show in the World Congress, the Percheron World Congress. Every 4 years, it's in the United States. We have been to Iowa, Virginia, Massachusetts, and one other. Doesn't matter. And Howard has taken a couple of times the world's first place in one of the shows. He likes to get in. We're not into the fancy stuff, but he puts on his tux and drives it. And for many years, they've asked him to drive in the dignitaries. They bring in the presidents of the various, from Great Britain, from France, and they bring them into the arena every night for the big show. So Howie gets into the class for the carriage, but he likes the part where you go out and you drag a tree stump or a log behind you. He likes that stuff, and I really am very proud of what you hear when I'm at those shows, that I hear people, and he didn't get it from me. No, he got it from the Amish folks, where he spent summer times a week down with our Amish friends, or 2 weeks, and that's where he's learned to really handle the horses. And he's taken a lot of first, second, third in that stuff. But that's what he gets into. Well, I just want to let you know that we do have world champs. My name is Goodyear. World champs. Those are my kids. I think that's. Yeah, that's about it, gang.
Okay,
Thank you.